So I was very critical, and rightfully so, and I was a contributor at CNN at the time in addition to doing my radio program. And I was told by a network handler that the Romney campaign had contacted them, and they demanded that I be on with a Romney apologist every time the subject that I was discussing was Romney or the 2012 election. A little bit difficult for, to do that all the time. It was either do that or me not be on. And it was, part of my job. Obama never did that. Bush never did that, but Romney did it. At least so far as I was told. And I wrote about this on danaradio.com. My friend and former boss, the late Andrew Breitbart, had given a speech at CPAC, and it was his last big speech before he passed away. And Andrew did not get into the weeds over Republican political power jockeying. He didn't care. He only cared about who controlled the calendar, who had enough power to override vetoes. That's what it was about. So probably about maybe 40 minutes to a half hour before Andrew took the stage at CPAC, he and I did a joint interview for a podcast in which we had a very friendly but very fiery debate over support for Romney. Because at this point, the general was pretty much, the primary is pretty much done. It was pretty much determined, and I still wasn't there. And Andrew was saying, you got to stop looking at it like this. You have to look at the overall strategy. And we went back and forth. And so right before he was getting ready to go out on the stage at CPAC, and he was giving his remarks were extemporaneous, he turned around and looked at me and pointed me right in the face. And he said, you should listen to what I say. And then he went out on stage. And the big quote that he gave, the most famous part of it, was this. Quote, you want a unity speech? I'll give you a unity speech. I don't care who our candidate is, and I haven't since the beginning of this. I haven't. Ask not what the candidate can do for you. Ask what you can do for the candidate. That's what the Tea Party is. We are there to confront them on behalf of our candidate, and I will march behind whoever our candidate is, because if we don't, we lose. There are two paths. One is America, and the other is Occupy. End quote. It was Occupy Wall Street at the time. And my friend, who was a fellow editor with me there, I headed big journalism, Mike Flynn, who was the editor of Big Government, he turned around, he kind of looked at me with this real crap-eating grin on his face. And I thought, okay, I get it. We want the purest candidate, I wrote, someone who is the perfect distillation of our political desires, and yet some issues are worse than others. I get it. Some issues you can't compromise. But we were at a point where we had to decide as conservatives, as Republicans, as independents, as small L libertarians, are we going to fight with the tools at our disposal, or are we going to walk away because the candidate wasn't perfect enough? And I told myself, my mantra at the time was, if perfection were required, no one would be fit to serve. But his imperfections, Romney, seemed enormous. And my biggest thing was he dodged trying to reconcile them. He was on attack instead of own up to it, or he would try to spin it or explain it away. Now, here's what I want to make clear, and I know I'm going long here, but it's worth it. I don't regret voting for Romney over Obama in the general election. Oh, but I do regret giving and listening to so many people who gave Romney a pass for issues that have more widespread consequences than the ones they're excoriating Trump over now. And I mean it. His tweets, though, the Billy Bush tape, yes, bring up these things, but don't you dare act like these are in any way comparable to years of defending legalized infanticide. Get mad over his tweets. Say that, but he had an affair. Yeah, that didn't stop these same people talking about Romney's principles right now from lionizing posthumously George H.W. Bush, who had an affair, and his wife was so depressed. She wrote a biography after his death where she admitted she was considering suicide, driving her car into a tree because she was so humiliated. Jim Baker even told him at one time, if you're going to run for president, you have to stop this or I can't run your campaign. And Bush apparently told him, well, I'll think about it. But that's right. because you people think it's virtuous to do it in secret. Nice parameters. Tell me about your principles. I'm fascinated by all of these people who hold Trump for his past remarks that he's never run from, that no one has ever given him a pass. But you refuse to hold Romney accountable for his. And then you have the audacity to try to wrap it in a veneer of faith. Give me a break. Now look, his vote wasn't going to count either way, because they had enough there already to determine acquittal. This was, and I wrote, this was virtue signaling level Pharisees, sackcloth, ash, and all. That's what this was. So I'm not begrudging Romney for his conscience, but I do take issue with how he and his supporters took issue with us voters in 2012 and our conscience and our principles and our objections. So he's bitter. I get it. It's weird to advertise your faith while you're demonstrating a bitter refusal to forgive losing in 2012, forgive being passed over for a choice cabinet position in 2016. And I wish that Romney fought as hard for voters in 2012. I wish he stood up to Candy Crowley as well as he tries to stand up to Trump and all the other debate moderators and all the other people that trashed his supporters as racists and Klan members. He didn't defend us. Well, how do you think we got Trump? And I really hope that Trump doesn't get into it and exchange fire, because he needs to not focus on the economy, stay the course. That is the most savage response you could get. And I sincerely hope that Mitt Romney, I really do, I hope that he comes to view the party, and I pray that he does, to view the party to which he is pledged as allies, more than the media he seeks. There are two paths, and I'll quote my friend Andrew, slight change. There are two paths. One is America, and the other is socialism. Make your choice.